Okay, let's look at Chapter 1, Section 3. Our standard is the same as it was in the last two. Understand the use of undefined terms, definitions, postulates, and theorems and logical arguments and proofs. 1.5, we're going to use coordinate geometry to represent and analyze line segments and polygons, including determining lengths, midpoints, and slopes of lines. And the slopes is the same as it was in Algebra 1. We're also going to talk about Chapter1, that's right triangle, apply the distance formula, so something new, and the Pythagorean theorem. You guys have seen that before, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, okay? And its converse, to solve real world and mathematical problems as approximate and exact values, using algebraic and logical reasoning, including the Pythagorean triples. That just means three numbers that, no matter what they are just a given, they will all give you whole numbers. Alright, when we're done with this, you will be able to find segment lengths using midpoints and segment bisectors. Use the midpoint formula, use the distance formula. Core vocabulary, midpoint and segment bisector. Alright, so let's look at this. Midpoint of a segment is the point that divides the segment into two congruent segments. Just what it sounds like, midpoint, middle point. Again, we talked about in a previous lesson, congruent is just a geometry way of saying equal. So when we look at our picture, we have this line segment AB. It starts and ends from A to B. We have this bisector CD. It bisects AB at M. That means M is the midpoint. So if you cut it in half, that means AM and MB are congruent. AM and MB are congruent. CD is a segment bisector. If it says bisector, it's cutting it in half, so the two parts are always going to be equal. Alright, so let's look at finding segment lengths. Okay, in the skateboard design, VW, let's see if I can move that around a little bit, or you can see the whole thing. Let's make it a little smaller. There we go. Makes more sense. Okay. In the skateboard design, VW right here, and bisects XY. So this cuts this in half at point T. And we know that XT right here is 39.9 centimeters. I want to find XY. I want to find the whole length. So we talked about the segment addition postulate, which said the two parts, alright, let me get a pen, which says the two parts, xt plus ty, is equal to the whole thing, xy. I know that xt is 39.9, oops, let's make that look a little nicer for you, is 39.9. Because this is the bisector that cut these in half, that means this one is 39.9 also. So plus 39.9 is equal to the entire thing xy, the entire length. So when you add those up, 18, 19, 6, 78 centimeters is how long xy is. Okay? We know that if these are equal, that these two will be the same amount also. Alright, so when we use using algebra with the segment lengths, which is what we did basically, but we have to add the variables because it's necessary. Point M is the midpoint of VW. Find the length of VM. Well, if these are congruent, that means they're equal. There's your math problem. Just set them up and solve. So your 4x minus 1 is equal to 3x plus 3. Get your variables on one side, get your constants to the other side, subtract your 3x. That cancels, that leaves you 1x minus 1 equals 3. Add your 1. So x is equal to 4. But does it ask you for x? It says find the length of VM. So no, you didn't finish the problem. You now need to substitute it back in. You need to put the 4 back in here. So 4 times 4 minus 1, because that's what Vm is equal to. So that's 16 minus 1, which is 15. That's the answer. Find the length of Vm. That's how long Vm is. All you found was x, so there's multiple parts to this that you have to do. You're not done with just the letter. Check and read. All right. Let's look at the midpoint formula. The midpoint formula, coordinates of the midpoint of a segment are the averages of the x-coordinates and of the y-coordinates of the endpoints. Add them, divide by how many there are. That's how you find an average. So, if A is x sub 1, y sub 1, and B is x sub 2, y sub 2, and they are points in a coordinate plane, then the midpoint, M of AB, has these coordinates. You add your 2 x's, divide by 2, add your 2 y's, divide by 2. It's an average. You've been doing averages for a long time, middle school math, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. What it looks like on a coordinate graph is right here. You got your x-coordinates, you got your y-coordinates. If you're adding your x's together, you're adding these together and finding the middle. Add, divide by 2. Same thing here. You're adding what they are and dividing by 2 to tell you where the middle is, and that gives you this point right there. This is where the formula comes from. So we're going to use the formula because that's what we must do. We're not going to see it and not use it. All right? So the endpoints of RS are R is 1, negative 3, S is 4, 2. Find the coordinates of the midpoint. This is X, this is Y, X1, Y1, X2, Y2. Label them. The formula is X1 plus X2 divided by 2, and Y1 plus Y2 divided by 2. Substitute the numbers in. You're going to get 1 plus 4 divided by 2. And then you're going to get negative 3 plus 2 divided by 2. Do the math. This is 5 over 2. Whoops, that don't look too nice. That's 5 over 2. This is negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1 over 2. You can leave it there, but if you leave it there, do you know where 5/2 is on the graph? Chances are you don't. If you have a calculator, it will automatically change it for you. If you don't have a calculator, how many times does 2 go into 5? 2 times with 1 left over. And so that's 2 1/2, negative 1/2. That's the coordinates of the midpoint. That's where the middle point is between those 2 points on a graph. All right, let's find the, okay, we're saying the midpoint of JK is here. They're telling you where the midpoint is. Now we want to find an endpoint. It will work. You can use this formula that we just did, but it is long. I'm going to show you a different way to do it. If you go Google it, they're going to show you the way I'm not, okay? So, I have my J here, and I know my coordinates for J are 1, 4. I know my midpoint is 2, 1, and it's between J and K, so put my K there. And I want to find K, so I don't know what it is. If you will say, look at it and say, on a number line, how many places do I go from 1 to 2? From 1 to 2 is 1 place, so I added 1 because it got bigger. From 1 to 2 it got bigger. So I must go 1 more place because these have to be equal. That makes them congruent. So 2 plus 1 is 3. When I look at the y's, from 4 to 1, it got smaller, so I'm going to subtract. So 3, 2, 1, I'm going to subtract 3, so I've got to subtract 3 again. These numbers have to be the same. That's what makes it the middle point. It's halfway between them. So 1 minus 3, negative, is 0, -1, -2. This is the coordinates for K. That is the endpoint for K. You look it up, they're going to show you how to substitute it in there. This is a really fast, quick, easy way. I had a student show me this about 10 years ago, and I have not found a time when it doesn't work yet.